No, 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 no. No, though it is funny. I was like, I'm sitting there like, man, you got me like primed. Like, oh, I'd love to dig into that topic and make its own lecture and just scrap this and do that one.
Go ahead. There's no rules. Are there rules? Go ahead. For real, man.
Well, I will quickly say this because it is one of the things that, from my own unique experience, bouncing around from center to center to center and center, just because there isn't one in Sarasota yet, and I don't have enough time to build one on my own, as much as a few people would love for me to do that. One of the good things I do get a chance to is I get to join multiple study groups. There are 4 groups that I join regularly that study the Spirit's book. Technically 5 if you include Tampa, but they only do it for 2 weeks out of the month. So for those different groups, I'm reading with them the Spirit's, a passage of the Spirit's book, and we're discussing it back and forth, back and forth. And it's always fun to watch or fun to listen to because each group's in a different location. Each group has different people, different ages, and everything else. Just as Peter was saying here, the 6 and the 9, things like that. Everyone has a different point of view. And when you start picking at some of these topics and you see the different points of view, even the fact that I'm up here and there'll be another speaker next week and another one after that and another one after that, we're all showing that we're showing Spiritism from our unique points of view. So you may not agree with it, that's fine. And then there'll be another speaker that maybe does agree with you, or it's like, okay, maybe we got to figure out where the gap is. Where's is there something not catching, or is there something I'm not catching? The other beautiful thing about everyone that's on this stage, that's up here, is not the teacher. We're not the master. We're just a student. If you're in college, we'd be the teaching assistant, the TA. So we're just the student that just happens to be a grade ahead. That's it. We're not the graduates. We will never be the graduates. There's only one, and he got nailed to a cross many, many years ago. So I will get off that soapbox and get back onto the topic with this one.
Which is the same, because what we encounter, it's exactly what happened.
Exactly. So we are going to learn to discern what we encounter. Let's see. Oh, that is not the right button. That is the right button. So we start figuring out what is discernment. Because this is something that goes from when Allan Kardec was alive and putting together the entire doctrine. He had to set up rules. He had to set up a system that he wanted to go through and figure out. It's like, hey, I'm getting all this information. Is it trustworthy? Is it good? Is it worth it? So like here, the definition. Discernment's the ability to distinguish truth from falsehood, good from evil, and higher guidance from lower influences using reason, moral intuition, and spiritual insight. And then go in there, what's one of our favorite lines that we all love to say? Unshakable faith is the only kind that can stand face to face with reason, or especially with every epoch of time. So it's like if it's true in Jesus' time, it's true in Kardec's time, it's true in our time, it's true in the Ice Age, it's true in the future, it will always be true. And we see that for those, since we have the science component, we see that in science. Atoms are always atoms, going all the way back to the Big Bang. It's not like, what was that movie? A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where all of a sudden everything turns to yarn, or turns to spaghetti, or turns into something else before going back to being normal again. Crazy picture, but I love that movie.
I just saw her realizing that in your brain.
Well, unfortunately, COVID ruined that birthday for me because my 42nd birthday was COVID. So, yes, I was going to go the full 9 on that one. That's one of the few times when I go wacky on my birthdays. Otherwise, I'm not. I'm pretty stoic. So, discernment, central spiritism, guiding mediumship, moral choices, and spiritual evolution. So, when we start going through this, we understand that we've got our pillars, like the religious, the science, and the philosophy. And within those, we have like these three pillars that hold up on the discernment. The immortality of the soul and reincarnation choices, are how our spiritual progress is shaped. And not only that, goes back to what we were talking about with the truth and the variety of different, the six, the nine, the things, all that, are the points of view. That shows up in how we present ourselves, how we communicate, what we do. We can recognize Joanna DeAngelis. She doesn't have to sign her name to a piece of paper. We realize that when she starts writing and it's in a language that's where it's like you got to study you got to go and get the college dictionary for some of the words she's using. You recognize Joanna DeAngelis. Versus, and then you can recognize Andre Luis. He's down here a little bit, but he still uses medical terms. He starts throwing stuff in there that shows that he's a doctor. And so we start seeing that those choices show up in all their different communications. And it creates a profile. Like how we can understand a manual. Manuel stays very close to being a minister, a preacher. He's always staying close to the faith in that regards. Emmanuel won't talk about Buddhists, Muslims, Jews. He pretty stays real close to Christianity. Moving on to moral laws. Charity, justice, love, benchmarks for discerning right from wrong. When we know that a higher order spirit, when they're giving us a communication, when we read the Bible, when we anything that's supposed to get us on the right track, we see that it's there. It's there to guide us. It's there to help us. It's not going to lead us astray. It's not one of those scrolling ads that you see on your phone where it says oh, we'll give you this, pay us money and we'll give you this and make your life better, dude, or whatever the medical miracle of the month is. This is something that's saying hey, we'll make this better for you. As we were talking before we started here, one of the most powerful things within Spiritism was this edict here where it says that give freely what was freely given. So that Jesus taught for free. Allan Kardec learned from the spirits for free. Because how do you pay a spirit? Just like what Jesus said many, many years ago. It's what's on the coin? It was Caesar. It's well, give Caesar's what is Caesar's. Because God uses a different currency. Spirits use a different currency. And their currency is our progress. They cheer. We can't hear them. They're probably the loudest and boisterous cheerleaders on the other side of life when we do good. And meanwhile, they are in pain. They're in agony when we stumble and fall. But they're right there with you to pick you up and says, okay, we'll get them next time. You'll get it next time. Come on, let's build yourself up. Let's get stronger. We can do it next time. They're always in your corner. They're always backing you up. So when you start having these ones and sitting when you get someone tells you you don't need to do that. You can just, go off and it's drink yourself in a stupor for a weekend, everything else. I don't think so. It's I can't see, Joanna, Andre Louise doing, or some of these sounds go on a bender. Nope. They won't tell you to sit on the couch, watch your favorite football program, or, World Cup, all that other stuff. They're saying, no, you help somebody. If you're going to enjoy it, bring people over, and invite people that maybe don't have the opportunity to watch, and share it with them. Do goodwill. That would be something they would go for. Reason and free will. Reason evaluates truth. Free will makes us responsible for our choices. Again, when we're getting these messages and everything else, everything we learn, we have to put the thing of reasoning to it, and we know that we will be responsible for our choices. It'll tell us, hey, if you do this, this is the reasoning for it. Spirit's book is full of it. Gospel's full of it. And the Heaven and Hell has examples of those that followed through with it, did good, and those that did bad, and how their life ended up in the next life. So, Jesus is the guide and the model for all humanity.
So he's talking about discernment. When Jesus came,
Mm-hmm.
the Jews thought that he would be the Savior.
They
He
had
will
a
fight. He will come with an army. So that was their discernment about the figure,
yeah.
and that's why they don't recognize him. And then the Spiritism came as the third revelation.
Mm-hmm.
Are we prepared to understand that, or we still crucify the gospel as Jesus was crucified before?
I would say depends on who you're talking to, because it seems to be, even though Kardec, with the Spirit of Truth and Kardec, they brought the doctrine to us 160, 170 years ago now, that we had this opportunity. And he says, these, again, going back to the line, give freely what was freely given. I'm giving you this knowledge, send it out, so that everyone can learn. Everyone can be informed on this. This isn't hidden behind, like, oh, you have to be a preacher of a church. You have to be, the Pharisees, or you have to be like the one that in the tabernacle, the chief priest that would be to go into the Holy of Holies. It's like where they had levels. They had where you had tiers, you had gates. Like Jesus was teaching not to special people. He was teaching to 12 ordinary people of various professions, of various backgrounds. And just like that, and same thing going what we were saying before, the four Gospels, they're all written differently. They're written from a different point of view, different perspective. They took some things as more important than others. So they're all slightly different, but they all still presented a unified message. So that when you read through the four Gospels, on the things that they do have in common, you see that they line up. So you can sit there and say, okay, Matthew has this, Mark has this, they must line up. This fits. This you can discern that maybe happened. Same thing, like if you want to even go down the proverbial rabbit hole, the Apocrypha books, why they're not in the Bible. Because they couldn't discern them. They couldn't figure out if they were true or not. They're a little out there. They're a little crazy on the edges. And they're like, I don't know about that one. Or they don't have it they found it in one spot. They didn't find it in others. Like the Dead Sea Scrolls. They says that a few of the Dead Sea Scrolls, they're missing text. So something was added after they were written. And we know throughout history, we didn't have the greatest of copy machines through the Middle Ages. They were all human beings working tirelessly, hours upon hours and hours, and they made mistakes. And it translated through. But since we're linking in the second revelation and the third revelation, through John. Do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. So we already know, and we've been asked to challenge the things we've been given. We have to sit there and read from John. It was like, how are we figuring this out? How do we, because we're starting to sit there and say, like, as Jesus was mentioning, he's passing on to the disciples. It's like, I'm teaching you, but then you will go out and teach. You will become the teachers. You will become that. And then later on through Kardec, with the Spirit of Truth, we came in and says, here, I'm giving you more. And in return, we're also going to help you out. We're going to write it in an understanding form because guess what? The people of the 1850s, 1860s are a lot different than the people of Jesus' time. If you can't see the development of humanity from that period of time all the way through the Dark Ages, Middle Ages, into the Renaissance, into the Age of the Enlightenment, and seeing how this explosion of knowledge started coming into being. And also the idea that we can think in abstract terms, which was a fairly new concept back then. That we were able to go beyond the actual physical touch when we start seeing the power of magnets and the wondrous things that they can do. Electricity. It's like you're able to start thinking in terms outside. So and then the spirits came and says, humanity, all of humanity, you're ready. Instead of 12, it's all. But just like that, Kardec sitting there saying, let's test them. Test them. Let's see. Are they following God's precepts? Are they following biblical passages? Or are they trying to lead us astray? What are they doing? Are they helping us? Are they hindering us? Let's put our mind to it. Let's think about it. Let's not take it as a random order. That's why Moses had that don't talk to spirits from the first revelation. Because humanity wasn't ready yet. They couldn't tell the difference. How do you know? Because after the miracles of the plagues and being led out of Egypt, having a nice giant pillar of either fire or clouds in front of them, when he goes up and sits up on top of a mountain for 40 days, they take all their gold and make a golden calf. And says, we'll worship that instead. Knowing full well that it wasn't a golden calf that led them out of Egypt. Took them a little bit. So that people were quick to dismiss. They didn't realize that they couldn't grasp that concept. But now they says, like, you fast forward now, when we see the pillar of clouds that move and just stay in place, we're going to sit there and say, like, that's not natural. That's special. Just like right now, keep seeing all this conspiracy theories and things about seeing UFOs and all these kind of crazy stuff. And they're like, well, what is it? What is it? Well, they're trying to figure out. They're trying to discern what it is. Is it aliens? Is it debris? Is it swamp gas? Weather balloons? They don't know, but they're trying to figure out. They're trying to discern. So we now start seeing that the doctrine and the Bible are working together.
Yeah. There is no definition of discernment so far, right? There is guidance to discernment, but not a strong definition of what they think that you need to use to guide you to have a better understanding of something.
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe that is something like still kind of in the clouds.
Yeah, and that's again one of the wonderful things of you, me, all this other ones. We're trying to put it together. We're trying to piece it together. I maybe can understand this concept better than you, but you will understand this other concept better than me. And this other gentleman will have another concept that far outsees both of us. But putting them together, working together, using the law of society from the Spirit's book to bring us all together. When we work together, we can solve problems. When we work together and we unify, that's when real progress is made. So I'm going to kind of go more into the mediums book here. And I know normally we're gospel, but there's still a lot of good bits and pieces out of the mediums book that is worth studying. I understand why we don't do the whole book, but we can, again, bits and pieces. Because when you go into it and you start, and if you are one of those that do have that do get influences from spirits, dreams, or like the Fox sisters, raps in the house, or something that's a little bit more obvious, then you can sit there and say, like, is it good? Is it bad? Does it need to be helped? Or is it like, to use the movie Sixth Sense, is this a spirit trying to give a message for the benefit of someone else? Because anyone that remembers that movie, there's a little girl scared the living crap out of that little boy. But yet, after he got over it and realized, what if they're trying to tell you something? What if they're trying to do it? And then she goes there and says, it's like, yeah, I feel better now. And then goes in, they get a message to go to this girl's funeral, the wake, at their house, goes upstairs to her room, finds a box, and inside it was hiding a VHS tape that showed what her stepmother had done to her. And it was starting to do to the other daughter. So, as a spirit sent a message to a person that went around and helped it. But they had to test it, they had to discern it. So, what is Kardec's criteria? Does the message promote charity and humility? Is it coherent and free of contradictions? Do multiple mediums receive similar messages? This is always one of the bigger ones, because we always say, like, if you get a message, it has to come. I think it's a double blind in psychology terms, where the mediums don't know each other. There's so many things where people don't know each other, but yet they get the exact same message, and they send it to one common place, and only there do they realize same message. Otherwise they just get a single message. They're like, well, we just got this one message. We'll send it on, see if someone else got it, but we're not. We're going to stay right there. We've all had a bunch, and through my 20 years, I don't know how many messages I remember hearing and seeing. I remember seeing the singular message about the reasons for COVID, one of the International Spiritist Council that was in Cuba, that's about a decade ago now. So it was like all these different things. And they said, oh, it's got a purpose for this purpose, this purpose, this purpose. Even recently, with the passing of Divaldo, they were saying, it's like, oh, they're already getting messages from Divaldo. Whoa, wait a minute, hold it. Start putting these things to it. They would start applying and saying, like, does this read like Divaldo? Does this read like so-and-so? Even in the Medium's book, they have an example of a false message from a false Jesus. How do they know it was false? Well, what was Jesus raised as? Does anyone remember? What was Jesus' profession? But he had a profession. Carpenter. So, if you're a carpenter, would you use fishing terms? There was a message, and they put it in the Medium's book and says, here's an example. And left it in there, word for word. It's like, but you said it's like this person that identified themselves as Jesus. But you could tell the nautical terms, the fishing terms. Like, oh, when the wind blows from the such and such, and you cast your nets and all those things, and making sure you have the hook to bring in the people and everything else. He's using different terms. Just like as I was saying before, we can recognize Joanna DeAngelis. She doesn't like to use plain language. She does, but she doesn't like to. She likes to say, hey, pick your game up. I know you're better than that. So she says, like, pick yourself up. Andre Luis, we know him as a doctor. He will not do engineering terms. If he starts describing Nosolar with what type of concrete, steel, aluminum, wood, like what penny nails and screws and bolts, then I know that's not Andre Luis, because he don't know that stuff. But he knows his way around the brain. He knows his way around the human anatomy. Me, not so much. So That's where we can start picking and figuring out who is who.
Generally, the higher they claim to be as a spirit, the less likely they are.
Yeah, where you have to start putting in all these other, like here, the charity and humility. Is it promoting charity? Is it promoting humility? Or is it stoking your ego? For those that watched the Devaldo movie that came out on YouTube in January, that was there for free on YouTube. When I sat there and watched it, Joanna never put Devaldo down, but she also didn't tell him, like, you do this, you're not going to do this. No, she let him have his free will. She says, you can go out, you can go enjoy Carnival. I'll just step back and you won't see me for a while, a long while. But
He wrote about 5 books that were false before he got the true message.
right. Well, he was practicing. He got to, and yes, and part of it is he had to build up the discipline. He had to build up the repertoire and everything else to the point where it's like, yeah, he was getting false messages. To the point where it's like, and that where Joanna just tells him, burn them. Now the real work would begin after he burnt them, not before. That was her test. She was like, hey, if you really mean it, if you wanted to go ahead, burn those. Once you burn them and they're ashes, then he says, okay, now the real work begins. Now you're going to get the real words, the true words. And we see this. We keep seeing through. And just like this, free of contradictions and everything else. Do we see contradictions? We see it with between spirits. We see some differences. Andre Louise introduced the concepts of astral cities. That's not in the doctrine. We don't hear about what's beyond that. I've heard, since it's not translated into English, Allan Kardec's posthumous works started to poke at it. Same thing with auras. Like, he started to poke at it. But again, it's not translated in English, so add salt to taste. This is the discernment part. I'm telling you, use your test on this one. I don't know. It's not, so you get to practice what I'm preaching. And also, when we start reading through, in like another book series that's been very controversial, especially down in Brazil, a spirit author named Ramatiz. Hugely controversial. Why? Because he's kind of dancing on the borders of all of these. Especially the one where it's like, he spoke through one spirit, or one medium only. It wasn't until that medium passed away that he finally jumped to another one. But for how long? He was one and one only. Which discernment factors like, well, how do we know he's real? How do we know he's higher order? He doesn't follow. We have these rules in place. He knows these rules are in place. Why not do that? We got books in our library where we have 2 spirit authors. They would switch back and forth, writing a chapter. So that one medium had one half of the book, the other medium had the other half of the book, and to make sure that they didn't get ahead of themselves, they wrote the book in reverse. They got the last chapters first, and they're like, well, we got the ending. I want to see how this thing started. And they would work backwards, because the spirits wanted to make sure that we follow our own rules. It's kind of funny when the spirits kind of like come back on us and say, you have these rules, we're going to put them back on you too. So we're not making sure that you don't mess up what we're trying to help you with. So that's it. I would say it's a double entendre, but I was like, in a spiritual way, because it works. It's like, and again, like it says here, with like the Ramatiz one, multiple mediums receive similar messages. It was like, how do you do that? How do you keep going? How do you mix this? Because we did see other spirits, other mediums, Andre Luis did speak to other mediums. He spoke primarily through Chico, but he did go to others. Joanna De Angelis stuck with Divaldo, but she still went to others. Because she knew about the rules. And she says, you know what? It's a good rule. It's worthy. It's helped to promote humanity. I'll do it. Probably not fun, but did it. And likewise, for contradictions and everything else. Because even then, even though they introduce new concepts, you don't see, free contradictions. I do know two spirits that talk about astral cities, and they were done through different mediums. Andre Luis talks about Nocelar and astral cities, and then Manuel Filomeno Miranda, through Divaldo Franco, also talked about their spiritual city. So they start talking, and now they're starting to link. They're building the discernment. Challenges to discernment. I kind of poked at a few of these already. Pride, selfishness, fear, material attachments, cloud judgment. Just like I said before the book, there was like, if you're told a book, they're like, oh, I can write this book, and they start getting ahead of themselves. They start using their mind to create the next chapter when the Spirit says, no, that's not it. I don't know how many people have ever saw the movie from 1999, the movie Dogma. It's a bit of a wacky comedy and everything else, and there was Salma Hayek plays a character as known as the Muse. And so she was sitting there, it's like, yeah, I helped inspire writing the Bible. It's like, yeah, I'm great at helping him write, but I have no say in the editorial process. And that's kind of like this. That's what we're going at here with the pride, the selfishness. It's like, would you sit there and cross out a word or everything else just to twist a message because it makes you look bad? Or a spirit would do that? Reading through the medium's book as I was preparing for this class, they were sitting there saying, like, if a person uses a name, like say, oh, I'm Julius Caesar, swear to it. So on the name, in God's name, I am Julius Caesar. Most of the spirits will balk. They'll stop. They'll say, I am, and then just random scribbles. Can't do it. Because they know. They know the rules. Or they'll sit there and say, I am the one who I say I am. Or it's like, or I am as God says I am. But doesn't say, I am Julius Caesar in God's name and everything else. They twist the words. So they can say it but not say it. And then you sit there and say, aha. They're bending the rules, they're twisting. That's not exactly what I told them to do. Again, we're using our mind, we're reasoning, we're thinking. Prayer, meditation, self-reflection, study of moral teachings. Pride is the source of most of our ills from the gospel. So it's like, again, when we let our pride get in the way. Saying, like, again, going back to what I was saying before with Moses. It's easy to sit there and say, hey, I'm an angel of God. I'm here to bring you great news. Here's this message for you. Blah, blah, blah. Go worship Baal. Blah, blah, blah. Go, do naughty things and everything else because we got kids in the back. So then I was sitting there saying, like, if that's a person of God and they're doing this, that's... But if I'm proud, I'm like, I got visited from an angel of God. And next thing you know is you're doing crazy, wacky stuff. Then I was like, I don't think so. But then again, why? Why'd you let that happen? Did you not discern? Or were you proud? Were you too proud? It's like you were thinking like, I'm special, I'm amazing, I am this, I am blessed. No, you're not. You just got taken for a ride. But are you too proud to admit it? Example, reacting with anger and pausing to reflect in a conflict. I know this one hits me personally because there are times when I get frustrated and maddened and everything else, and I'm like, I've explained it to you so many times. And then I get a little heated, I get my temper flares, or I get passionate. And that's one of the things that I keep getting yelled at. And people are like, stop yelling. It's like, I'm not yelling, I'm passionate. Because when I'm passionate, I project. And she was like, I'm projecting. She's like, I'm yelling. I'm not yelling yet. You want to hear yelling? But then I still have to sit there and back off and say, okay, rein it in. Why do we have that saying? Let cooler heads prevail. Because we're going to discern. We're going to sit back and think. We're going to sit there and take a look at it. As Peter says, we're going to flip around to the other side and see that, oh, I thought it was a 6. It's actually 9 if I go to the other point of view. So I'm sitting here, or like right now, I don't see something in front of me. I see all of you. You see me, and you see the presentation. I have to turn my head to see it. But that's okay. But I'm a chance to discern. We're trying to figure it out. We're trying to work it through it. So, doing pretty good on time. But now let's take this outside the medium's book. Let's start applying this to your day-to-day lives. Because you can apply these same basic principles in your day-to-day lives. Just as I said before a while back ago with the ads. When you get the spend so much money and get this miracle drug to make you happy, healthy, and whatever. It's like, are you discerning? Are you reading through? Are you putting that in there? I mean, following the news for Maha, and they're saying bad chemical, good chemical. There's a big fight going on, and it's forcing people to discern: is what we've been told true, or is it not? Time will tell. I'm not going to get into it. That's not what this is for. So. But again, you can start to see as you go through and read, even non-spiritual stuff that you read, like say Chronicles of Narnia or Lord of the Rings, has a good message within. It's not spiritual. Well, Narnia might be a little bit spiritual. But if you're trying to use this, discerning, it's like, would this be beneficial? Is this a good story? Is this something that I can learn a message from? You got to still discern from it. You still got to apply these same principles to it. Even though it's going to fail that last one, because C.S. Lewis, there's only one C.S. Lewis. There's only one J.R.R. Tolkien. Or take your other favorite author. J.K. Rowling for the Harry Potter fans. And you can sit there. Do you see, do the cast and characters, do they break their pride, selfishness, fear? You can kind of see it in some of those books, and you can learn from it. Or even the self-help series. Is it just a chance to write a book, sell a book, or is it there to actually help you? Kind of have to figure out. And that's why it says, now we can take it. That's one of the things that whenever I come up for a lecture, that's one of the things for me, this is my own pet peeve, personal thing. It's like, whenever I read something, I got to try to apply it to my daily life. That's like my little thing. And so that's why I'm sitting here I just read this wonderful section of the medium's book to discern what's good from evil, applying these rules. So is what I'm going through in my day-to-day life following the doctrine? Is it following the Bible? Is it following the teachings and things that I've grown up and learned in my lifetime? What I think is right. Or, as I've discussed with others to say, is this right? Is this wrong? Because and then I can sit there and think about it, stew on it, meditate, reflect, back up. Let cooler heads to prevail. Okay, I'm going to go on Amazon and buy stuff. No. Usually when you sit there, like this, like how many like advertising, love for the impulse buy. Why? You're not discerning. You're skipping that step. Do you need it? Do you want it? You may want it. Do you need it? Do you have the money for it? So now you're discerning. You're applying it. Does it help you make you a better person? Does it help improve your life? Now, I know this is meant to be spiritual, but you can also apply this to your physical too. And that's, again, to bridge the gap. The Spiritism has religion, philosophy, science. And so they all work together. So why not use discernment? It's meant for moral lessons. Should not also apply to whether you need a new vacuum cleaner or not? Doesn't that kind of work that way? Is it in a weird way to come about? Because don't we also sit there, like, as we've mentioned before, we talked about the golden rule. Treat others as you like to be treated. That applies. Whether you're driving in your car or you're helping a person on the street. Law of cause and effect. It's Newton's first law. That's physics. But yet, it's also karma. And also in Spiritism.
Question.
Yeah.
How do we determine judgment and discernment? Judgment is wrong, discernment is necessary. How do we
You're using
separate the two?
Okay. The question is, how do you tell the difference between judging and discerning? And a lot of it has to do with reasoning and logic. Because when you're sitting here, when you're just judging, do you have all the facts? Are you using your heart, just like emotions, using your brain, using them both to sit there and figure out, like, okay, does this make sense? Does this, again, it's like you're kind of having to sit there and say, push outward. What is the purpose? What was the purpose of this thing saying it? What was the purpose of, if we're like, again, using current events, P. Diddy. Did he do it? A jury had to discern. They couldn't just judge. They had to use the facts of the case and everything else. They said yes to some, no to others. I'm leaving it there at that one. It's as an example. I'm not going to go deep in that one. I'm already dancing a fine line as it is.
If I can jump for a second on that. Discernment takes time. Discernment takes time. Judgment kind of instant. Like you just react. You don't proact to that. You don't think about it. You just get the emotion that you're feeling and you just judge because we are used to judge our entire life. So if you stop, and that's why we talk about meditation. Meditation helps a lot to discern things because you have to swallow it before you have to take time. It's not something that comes that fast. And that's why Spiritism comes to tell you nothing is that sense of immediacy. You have to just get the result right off the bat. Chances are that you can get it wrong.
Just for those on the watching us live, I don't know if they can hear Peter, but basically his comment was, forget about it. But it was still a very good point, and it's worth repeating. It was like saying when you're discerning, you're taking the time to digest. It's not an immediate response. Judging is again much more spontaneous, and that's where it says like you can take the time to study and stew on it, and as meditation helps when you sit there and you meditate on it, and you're sitting here, it's taking time. You're processing it.
Pieces together.
You're putting the puzzle pieces together.
Discernment is also a little more methodical, but more scientific.
Yes, discernment.
An immediate reaction.
Yeah, more methodical, more scientific. You're right.
That's what he's written there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, discernment is a spiritual practice rooted in reason, moral laws, love, guiding mediumship in daily life. So, and like I said, I was trying to poke hard on that daily life one because it is something that says like it's not. One of the things that I still greatly love and appreciate about Spiritism is it's not something you just do for an hour and that's it for the week, and you just go about your life. Spiritism forces you to think about how you live your life, what you're doing. It's not, as they jokingly say in the Catholic Church, say 3 Hail Marys and call me in the morning.
You can ask me.
Gotta have active tradition in there.
Yes.
Always.
And then again, deepen discernment through studying Kardec's work, practicing charity, and reflecting daily. So it's a journey. The discernment, you can sit there and read just one passage and that's it and say, oh, I can discern. But you can only discern against that one passage. As I said, we're all students up here. Every one of us in this room, everyone that gives a lecture, we're all students. We're all continuing to study. We're all deepening our knowledge. And not just spiritually. We have our professions, we have our homes, our families, and everything else. But it's funny how they all link together when you start putting things together. And then man advances progressively towards perfection. Spirits book, question 192. Because as we discern, we deepen our knowledge. When we sit there and we pick apart what's true, what's not, we start to realize, we can start to understand what's true, what's not. Like I said, someone from the Middle Ages, they'll see a jet airplane and think it's a dragon because it's breathing fire. We know better. But then again, there's stuff that's going to happen 1,000, 2,000 years into the future that we will say is magical, mystical. But it will be science.
Arthur C. Clarke.
Arthur C. Clarke. Also Kardec. Because what did he say? Everything that majority of people call supernatural is just natural. It just, they didn't connect, they couldn't get from A to B to C to D to Z. They got A, B, X, Y, Z. And like, there's a big old gap in the middle. So they're like, oh crap, this must be supernatural. This must be beyond nature. Not realizing that they just didn't have the tools at the time to link them. And Kardec started to put together the tools. It says, yes, we need to engage help from people that can see that side and interact with them and help them. But since we can't, we're doing this as pen pals, there's no spiritual FaceTime yet. We'll have to sit there and say, you can send us a message, but we're going to check it. I know we have a few veterans in here, and I'm sure it says like you get orders from command. How do you know that? And it's like, well, don't we have to verify those orders? Isn't that part of the process? Especially if it's a really wacky and wild out there thing. Like, hey, can you verify those orders for us? So that's kind of it for me. Is there any questions, concerns, anything else I did before we go to the reflections? Seeing, all right. So, oh yeah, question.
One thing I think we need to reflect on in this is discerning the act separately from the actor.
Yes, that's huge. Discerning the act from the actor. Yes, because otherwise, again, how many times do they say, "Don't shoot the messenger"?
Right.
And that's true, because it's like, how often do we see that where it's like, do we get good news, bad news? You know, like, especially if we have a spirit that comes and tells you, like, you've been swindled. You've been letting your pride get a hold of you. You've been barking up the wrong tree for quite a while, and we're here to tell you no, that you've been going the wrong direction. And are you going to sit there and like, oh crud, and think about it, or are you just going to rail against it like, oh, you don't know what you're doing, da 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 da. Again, just as you said, discerning the actor at the message from the messenger. So, all right. With that, Al, you're up. All right. I guess we need time for the music.